Rwanda is holding a subdued memorial at the Kigali Genocide Memorial for the 1994 genocide that left about 800,000, mostly Tutsis and also Hutu moderates, dead in just 100 days. Similar events are being held at sites across districts, but they have been restricted to no more than 2 hours. Rwanda has been holding low-key memorials of the genocide following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Previously, the government held week-long events to commemorate the genocide, which was sparked by the death of Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu, when his plane was shot down above Kigali airport on the 6th of April, 1994. Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Ugandan independent analyst, Dr. Frederick Golooba-Mutebi, to tell us a little bit more as someone who spends a lot of time in Rwanda and Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter. Just to tell you that I'm also Rwandan, by the way. I'm Rwandan. I'm a citizen of Rwanda as well.
All right, so this is a story that's close to your heart. It's been 28 years, and I just wonder, as it gets commemorated each year in Rwanda, typically what happens and what do you find people are thinking about in the country at this time?
This period is usually a very somber period. There are no festivities of any kind. People are very quiet and contemplative. As you would know, there are many Rwandans who are sole survivors, or who are very few who survive from families of fairly large numbers of people. So it's a period of mourning and remembrance and reflection, and it's a quiet, somber period. People are thinking of what happened and also contemplating about where the country is headed or should be heading in terms of reconciliation and ensuring that never again should there be a genocide in the country.
What did the president say today? I guess another reaffirming message, as you suggesting, about where the country is and is going.
Yeah, I mean, the president always gives a message of encouragement. They celebrate how far the country has come since that time. Clearly, very few people, if anyone at all, expected Rwanda to overcome the difficulties that were imposed on it by the genocide against the Tutsi. So many people died, so many professionals died. The country really reached rock bottom. So besides this period being one of contemplation and one of mourning, it's also a period that Rwanda used to reflect on just how pretty much miraculous the transformation of the country has been in the last 28 years. So in a sense, it's also a celebration of the transformation of the country. And the fact that, in contrast to the past, Rwanda is now a more united country. The society is much more willing to work together. The discrimination and marginalization of the past, that's no longer there. People are looking forward, and people are very happy to be identified and to identify others as Rwandans rather than members of the groups into which past governments divided them and used to manipulate society and also set citizens upon each other.
So 28 years later, would you say that the journey of forgiveness has happened? Because there would be reason for many people to not want to forgive and to keep grudges for this period of time. We had the courts, we had people serve justice. 28 years on, do you think that the forgiveness has happened and that the healing truly has come to Rwanda?
Well, Peter, you used the word journey, and indeed it's a journey. It hasn't ended, it is still ongoing. But a very, very large number of Rwandans have decided that it's time to move on. And moving on does not mean forgetting what happened, but accepting that a big tragedy befell the country, but that it's necessary to go beyond it and look forward to building a society in which people forgive each other, people decide to work together in the interest of building a new society. And that is exactly what is happening. No one can tell you that there are no people in Rwanda who are unwilling to forgive. No one can tell you that there are no people in Rwanda who are unrepentant. But at least the general view is one of reconciliation and one of contrition and of very large numbers of people wanting to move on to build a new country together. So yes, it's a journey that is still continuing. It's been difficult traveling it, but a very large number of people have really joined in. And the country is moving forward in what I would say is a very positive direction.
My first trip to Rwanda, I got an insight which we often don't think about, but after the genocide, there were literally thousands and thousands of children that became orphans overnight, over time, over those months. They're all adults now. Where are they in terms of perhaps finding their place when you have a whole generation of people that are orphans?
Well, some of these young people grew up in families of relatives. Some grew up in orphans. Others were adopted by other people. Some were actually taken out of the country. But as you said, they have now become adults. Many of them have families of their own. They have children. They've married. They have professions. They have trades. They can't overcome, they can't forget or minimize what happened in the past. Some may not have been aware of what was happening at the time because they were very young. Others wouldn't remember what their parents or relatives looked like. But a very large number of them are still in the country. They have become adults and they have joined hands with other Rwandans to build this new society. In which there is a great determination that things of that kind don't happen again. Yeah, but of course, the trauma and whatever other challenges are associated with those events still lives on. And as we said just now, it is a journey, a difficult one, but one that people are determined to keep walking so that eventually Rwanda becomes the new society that everyone wants to see come about and that everyone wants to live in.
We started this conversation yesterday with other commentators, and one of the questions I'm going to put to you as well is, do you think enough lessons have been learned about what happened in Rwanda? Because we see quite a lot of polarization, political intolerance, and even xenophobia on the continent. And this can be the spark or the matches, the fuel for a genocide type of event.
Yes, and of course, as you know, Rwanda was not the first genocide to happen in the world. There had been other genocides before, and yes, lessons do get learned by mainly those who are directly affected. Others who just watch from a distance do not learn the same lessons. Some don't learn any lessons at all. As you would be aware, there are episodes of genocide denial. There are people writing books denying that the genocide happened at all. So yes, there are people who have learned, but I would think that the hardest lessons and the deepest cutting lessons would have been learned by Rwandans themselves who experienced this tragedy directly. But even within the region, there are people who still engage in acts that threaten the stability of their own societies. There are people who are still going around waging war on other communities. There are people who are still going around killing other people. So yeah, lessons do get learned, but not by everybody. And for those who are not very close to the tragedy that happened, they don't learn the same lessons as those who experienced it.
President Macron of France in 2021 offered what seemed like some responsibility, France's role in Rwanda's genocide. What do you think that acknowledgement actually means? Could there be a case for some kind of reparations or something?
The issue of reparations has been raised by various commentators. The government of Rwanda is not pushing it. The government of France doesn't seem to be intent on paying reparations. But I think that what President Macron did was to make a gesture that opened the way for a new chapter in Franco-Rwanda relations. Until then, relations between the two countries had been very, very problematic. But since then, it seems like there has been a certain warming up to each other, France acknowledging its responsibility, and Rwanda wishing to accept whether it was an apology or an acknowledgement of responsibility, that's probably the most that they can expect from France, at least for now, and to accept that they are quite happy to work with France along those lines, and to try and create a new relationship in which there is mutual respect and in which France does not engage in activities that might be designed to harm Rwanda's progress, Rwanda's efforts to overcome its very difficult past.
Undoubtedly, because it is a personal story, Rwandans will be more introspective on a day like today. But it is the International Day of Reflection because of what happened in Rwanda. So what might be a message to brothers and sisters across the continent in terms of what we should be reflecting on today as we think about what happened in your country in 1994?
You see, Africa is a continent that has been rocked by conflict, by wars, by coup d'etat, by all kinds of things that have caused almost perennial instability on this continent and that have led to great loss of life, that have destroyed economies, destroyed people's lives and quality of life. And I think that reflecting on what happened in Rwanda and how the people of Rwanda have worked so hard to overcome that history and create a new society in which political stability, prosperity, and reconciliation and cohesion are very important things to work for, that the rest of Africa might want to learn some lessons from Rwanda. You don't have to experience a genocide in order to create a society that values stability and peace and cohesion, so that people living within the same society do not turn on each other and seek to destroy or kill each other. So I think that those are the lessons that the rest of us could learn from Rwanda.
Dr. Golooba-Mutebi, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time and helping us reflect on this important day. Thank you.
My pleasure, Peter. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. All right, that's independent analyst Dr. Frederick Golooba-Mutebi, who's a Ugandan Rwandan, speaking to us about the genocide that took place in 1994. And today is the International Day of Reflection, looking back at what happened back then and how we might learn lessons and change our views and attitudes and the way we behave in the present time.